Hello, everybody, and welcome to Penguins to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. Penguins training camp only a few weeks away. We're getting close. We're seeing some players play at the BioSteel camp up in Toronto. Ryan Graves, Sidney Crosby, P.O. Joseph, and in a few weeks we will see everybody on the Pittsburgh Penguins, including new faces, Erik Karlsson, Matt Nieto, Lars Eller, Nola Chari, Riley Smith, Alex Nedeljkovic, and many more take the ice at UPMC Lemieux Sports Complex in Cranberry. Competition seems to be the theme of the year for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Several roster spots are up for grabs, with nearly a dozen players vying for a chance to begin the season at the NHL level with the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll likely talk about every position battle in depth once camp draws nearer, but the top battle to watch is round 2 between P.O. Joseph and Ty Smith for the left spot on the third pairing. Last season, Ty Smith won, right? Ty Smith won the battle. He had the better camp. He put together better tape during the preseason matchups. However, due to cap mismanagement by people that are no longer with the organization, Pierre-Olivier Joseph technically won the job and started the season at the NHL level for the first time in his career. You can say that, and then you can also say that once Joseph got the job, he stepped up to the challenge. Once the season began, P.O. Joseph was a completely different player than he was in training camp. It might have been the confidence boost he needed to become what he ended up becoming for the Pittsburgh Penguins last season. 75 games played, second most among Pittsburgh Penguins defensemen. The only player to play more games than him on the blue line last season was Brian Dumoulin, and Brian Dumoulin didn't miss a game. 5 goals, 21 points, 53.4% of the shot attempts at 5-on-5, 52.6% of the expected goals for at 5-on-5, and 53.4% of the scoring chances at 5-on-5 for Pierre-Olivier Joseph. Heck of a rookie season for the defenseman. He played with multiple different partners as well, so it's not like he settled in with one guy and played with that guy for a lot of the season. He played with Chris Letang for extended periods. He played with Jan Rutta for extended periods. He played with Jeff Petrie for certain periods of time. But he played most of the season with Chad Ruhwedel. That was the partner he frequented most. Over 300 minutes of ice time with Chad Ruhwedel at 5-on-5. That could be a big factor heading into this season and heading into this training camp, where Chad Ruhwedel could end up being the guy on the right side for the third pairing for the Penguins. Meanwhile, Ty Smith last season only played in 9 games. He came in as an injury relief player when both Chris Letang and Jeff Petrie went down around the new year. 9 games for Ty Smith last year, 1 goal, 4 points, 57% of the shot attempts, 58% of the expected goals, and 55% of the scoring chances. He was very, very good when he played for the Penguins last season in those 9 games. And he was pretty good as well when he played in Wilkes-Barre. Unfortunately for him, he would have had the second opportunity to come up, but he suffered a facial fracture that left him out most of the remainder of the season. It cost him opportunities to get back into the NHL level and get towards 15, 17, 20 games played with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So who has the advantage entering camp? I'd have to give that to P.O. Joseph. He played all season long at the NHL level, and a lot of the time with Chad Ruhwedel, who is the leader in the clubhouse for the third pairing right defense spot. He plays a more responsible style than Smith when it comes to defensive hockey, but also does bring some of that offensive side. Mentioned that he had 21 points last season for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and it seems like he has more to give in that aspect. P.O. Joseph, we saw from very early on in his first couple of cups of coffee at the NHL that he does have some very good stick handling abilities. He has a decent shot, and he has a good mind for the game, for the transition of the game as well. As we'll see, Joseph won't get that spot just simply because of roster issues this season, though. He's going to have to outperform Smith, something he didn't do last fall. I think he's the leader in the clubhouse, but I think the gap between the two is very small. I'd give him the advantage because the Penguins saw what he could do day in and day out for an entire season last year. I think Mike Sullivan knows it. I think Todd Reirden knows it. And I think Kyle Dubas knows it as well. But if Ty Smith goes out and puts, again, better work at practice and puts on better performances in the preseason games, there's a chance P.O. Joseph loses that role. Now, what gets interesting is Ty Smith can play both sides. Last year, Petrie goes down, Letang goes down, Ty Smith comes up, he plays the right side. That brings Chad Ruhwedel into the occasion once again. Ruhwedel is 33 years old. P.O. Joseph is 24. Ty Smith is 23. If the Penguins want to secure the future of that pairing, they would hope that Smith and Joseph run away with it, and Ruhwedel becomes, as he has been for the Pittsburgh Penguins for years, the super utility man and the seventh defenseman. That's best case scenario for the Pittsburgh Penguins, that Joseph and Smith are so good in the preseason that they cannot be denied a roster spot, and they play together when the season opens up on October 10th against the Chicago Blackhawks. But it's going to be that three-man rotation. You're going to add Mark Pysyk, who the Penguins signed to a PTO last week. You're going to add Mark Friedman, who has always been just kind of sitting in the shadows waiting for his opportunities and performing well when he gets his opportunities. It's going to be an intriguing battle in the bottom pairing on both sides. But the two biggest names are going to be Ty Smith versus P.O. Joseph. Who gets to play on their natural side? I don't know if P.O. Joseph can switch over to the right. And I don't know if the Penguins are simply going to say, you know what? Ty Smith can switch over to the right and we'll just banish Chad Ruhwedel to the seventh defenseman spot again. I'm not sure if that's what they're comfortable doing entering camp. But the opportunity is there for these two guys. Heading into a contract year, Ruhwedel also heading into a contract year to earn that position. You look at the Pittsburgh Penguins in general for the future. Their top four is set. They just signed Ryan Graves to a 6-year deal. They just traded for Erik Karlsson, who has 4 years remaining on his deal. Letang is entering year 2 of a 6-year deal. And Marcus Pettersson, as many will find out this season, is one of the premier defensive defensemen in this league. And he still, I believe, has another year left after this deal, or after this season. So the top four is pretty set in stone going forward. That only leaves 2 spots on the defense. 2 spots that these 2 gentlemen can go in and take and grab and get the opportunity to sign longer-term extensions with the Pittsburgh Penguins, meaning probably 4 years, maybe 5 years next offseason. If they perform well enough, it's probably what they're going to get. Because when you look at the Penguins system, the next prospect that even has a chance of really pushing for an everyday spot at the NHL level is Owen Pickering. And he is still a few seasons away from making that type of impact, making that type of push. It's going to be an important year for Owen Pickering. Hopefully you get to see a lot more of him at the AHL level, taking that step, playing against professionals, playing against older, established talent in the American Hockey League. But he's a few seasons away from making any push at the NHL roster. It's great to have a guy like Smith in the wings, right? In case the same thing that happened last year happens this year. Injury to one of Erik Karlsson or Chris Letang, you have a guy that can come up and at least fill that hole offensively. Yes, I get it. Chris Letang is more of an all-around defenseman than Erik Karlsson or Ty Smith. But at least you have somebody that can come up, that can make up for that loss of blue line offense, and specifically can make up for that loss on the power play. Smith headmanned the power play unit last year in those 9 games that he stepped in. He can do it again this year. It's going to be a pivotal year for them because if they don't perform, the Penguins have the top 4 already. And you see bottom pairings switch every single year for most teams. If they don't perform, the Penguins will just cut them loose. They'll go find somebody else to play the bottom pair because most of the defense is figured out at this point. So they need to perform well here. If not to remain with the Penguins, to get good tape to the rest of the teams in the league and try to stick at the NHL level. Joseph did it last season. Ty Smith wants to get back there. It's going to be a huge year for both of them, and they'll be battling it out in training camp to see who gets that left spot. There's a chance Ty Smith gets the right spot and they play together. But again, it's going to be imperative that both of them perform from the opening whistle to the final whistle of the season. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Remember, you can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcast from.